Tonight, the story of the talented Mr. Santos continues to unravel. The Nassau County District Attorney has launched an investigation into Congressman-elect George Santos. In a statement, Ann Donnelly, a Republican, writes, quote, "The numerous fabrications and inconsistencies associated with Congressman-elect Santos are nothing short of stunning. No one is above the law, and if a crime was committed in this county, we will prosecute it." This comes after Tish James, the New York State Attorney General, already said she was looking into Santos. What is undoubtedly of interest to both is how Santos went from having no assets and a salary of $55,000 to being worth anywhere between $2.6 million to $11 million in the span of 2 years. I'm sure they would also like to know how he was able to loan his campaign more than $700,000. In his latest interview with the website Semafor, Santos tried to explain what he did, but failed to explain where the money came from. He claims the money he made was from a company he founded in 2021, which specialized in deal building and specialty consulting for high net worth individuals. During the campaign, Santos accused his opponent of being dishonest. Last night, while on Fox, shoe was on the other foot.
Everybody just wants to push me and call me a liar. Look, I embellished my resume.
Santos.
I did.
Congressman-elect Santos, we've given you a lot of time. I think the time that is owed is to the people of New York's 3rd. It's hard to imagine how they could possibly trust your explanations when you're not really even willing to admit the depth of your deception.
Oh, you're getting schooled by Tulsi Gabbard. Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Richie Torres of New York and Robert Zimmerman, the Democrat who ran against Congressman-elect George Santos in this year's election. Gentlemen, thank you both very much for coming to the readout.
Great to be with you both.
Let me start with you, Congressman Torres. You put out a tweet demanding an investigation, and I want to read it. George Santos, a former call center employee, falling behind on his rent, lent his campaign a staggering $705,000. Where did all that money come from? The Ethics Committee must start investigating immediately. I mean, you're the congressman from the Bronx. He's the congressman-elect from Long Island. Why is this of such concern to you?
Well, it's of concern to me because George Santos is a pathological liar who has defrauded the voters of New York State. I mean, he has lied systematically about nearly every aspect of his life, his family heritage, his educational background, his employment history, his ties to historical events like the Holocaust or the Pulse Club massacre. And the breadth and depth of his deception is simply staggering. It's unprecedented. But even worse than his lying is his possible lawbreaking. He should be the target of multiple investigations. The House Ethics Committee should investigate him for his likely falsification of official federal documents. We have to send a clear message that if you defraud the voters, you're going to be held accountable. You're going to be even prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Mm-hmm. And Robert, you were the Democratic nominee running against George Santos. And during the campaign, you were trying to get anyone and everyone to listen to the red flags that you were seeing, that the evidence that you had. Why do you think no one paid attention? Why are you not surprised that George Santos is in the hot water he's in?
Well, first, I have to thank Congressman Torres for his leadership on this issue. He and his colleagues have been, in fact, bringing this to the forefront, where I think we're all grateful, Democrats and Republicans alike, for his leadership. And I would say to you, when you look at this issue, look at this story, it really speaks to the importance of our local media and the need to invest in our local media, whether it was Steve Blank at Blank Slate Media on the North Shore of Nassau County, or the North Shore leader with Grant Lally, or reporters at Newsday. They did look into these issues and do their best to investigate and explore these issues. Unfortunately, this race was not considered a high-profile race, and a very contentious national midterm election year, very contentious race for governor. Try as we might, we couldn't get a number of these issues on the radar, and that was very unfortunate. But I think but it does give an important lesson about why we have to support and invest in our local media. That really is the answer for protecting our democracy.
And Robert, though, What recourse do you have as a citizen of the district, but also as the Democratic nominee? Is there anything that can be done that would prevent George Santos from taking the oath in 6 days?
Well, we're having a rally tomorrow in Nassau County at the courthouse, bringing together Democrats and Republicans to make that demand. And we're going to have to keep the public pressure on. I know it's very difficult to block him from being seated, but keeping the pressure on to make sure there is a House Ethics Committee investigation, making sure that we keep the spotlight, as you pointed out, about where he got his money from to loan as a campaign, $700,000, how his income grew to between $3.6 and $11 million in 2 years. We all know the deal here. We all know that George Santos has been bought. The question is who bought him. And I think it's worth noting, as the Daily Beast reported, that he received over $50,000 in funds from Russian oligarchs, relatives of Russian oligarchs. They didn't find him on Tinder. They didn't pick him out of America's Got Talent. There's some way that connection was made, and I think it's worth looking at his business transactions to see other relationships as well, and in fact, who actually did business with him to buy him.
Congressman Torres, though, and these are all great points being made. He should be investigated by the House Ethics Committee. He should be looked into. But with the incoming Republican majority, is there any political will to do all the things we're talking about here? Will anything happen to George Santos as a result of the lies he's told?
Well, I have no confidence that the Republican House majority is going to hold him accountable. But George Santos is likely to be the target of multiple investigations. The Republican district attorney from Nassau County opened a criminal investigation into George Santos. So that a Republican DA would investigate George Santos is a sign of more investigations to come. And the most important question is, where did all the money come from? As late as May of 2020, he reported a salary of $55,000. Then in 2021 and 2022, he reported earning somewhere between $3.5 and $11.5 million. That is an astronomical growth in his personal wealth that he has not sufficiently explained. As has been noted, he lent his campaign more than $700,000. He claims the money comes from the DeVolder organization, which has been shrouded in secrecy. There's no public website. There's no LinkedIn page. It has been dissolved previously. And so where there's smoke, there's fire, and there needs to be both a criminal and a civil investigation.
Robert, I'm going to end with you. Let's say George Santos, for one reason or another, either isn't seated or a new election is held. Would you run again?
Well, I've already issued a declaration to George Santos, assuming his name is George Santos, that he should, in fact, because of his lies and the admissions of criminality, he should resign from his seat. And then I would face him head off in a face-off where I'd run against him, and the public could decide who's speaking the truth and who can best represent the district. So that's one offer I've made. And frankly, but I don't envision that happening. I don't want to make this about me. I quite frankly, Jonathan, want to keep the focus on George Santos, keep the focus on the urgency for the investigation, because that has to come first. We have to bring Democrats and Republicans together to get that done. When we have a vacancy, believe me, Jonathan, I'll be on the phone with you and discussing it.